Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Boston quintet Lord Almighty. The band's new album Wither will be released on October 16th. Okay, so Lord Almighty back with album number 2 after releasing their well-received debut Paths back in 2015. If you've never heard Lord Almighty before, I suppose they're a little difficult to pigeonhole.
Eclectic is what I think that's what the kids call it.
Yeah, eclectic. Yeah, that works. I think maybe the closest I could maybe go with possibly like Black and Roll, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah, something like that. But there's more than just those two styles. They throw in, obviously there's black metal in there. They throw in a bit of there's southern rock in there. There's a bit of hardcore, some punk. There's some sludge in there. A very mix of styles in there. And I've said we've probably both said on past reviews that when it comes to black metal, I tend to struggle with the kind of more traditional, the kind of straight up black metal albums.
Yeah, we are the black metal fans that black metal fans hate.
Yeah.
I think that's safe to say.
Yep, absolutely. I tend to have more of a connection when a band blends black metal with other flavours. And that's exactly what Lord Almighty do. This is a band that are rooted in black metal, and they've taken the kind of bleak tones, the blast beats, the raspy vocals, and they've fused it with something a bit more user-friendly. For me and Duncan anyway, and it's not necessarily a pairing you would expect to work. If you looked at it on paper, you're thinking, right, black metal, southern rock, hardcore, punk, sludge. But this band, having been honing their craft for the last 7 years, have kind of managed to, I'd say they've managed to nail a really well executed balance of all the styles. There's a ton of influences on this that again look kind of peculiar on paper, but when you hear it, none of those influences really sound out of place or overpowering. On the kind of bleaker side of things, there's like hints of like Darkthrone in there. They reminded me of a band called Sektemtum, who they were on my end of year list a few years back. I really enjoyed that band. But then on the other side, on the kind of sludgy, kind of southern rock side, you've got there's a little hint of like Kvelertak in there. Little Mastodon bits in there, even like Red Fang. But what I liked was it didn't really feel like they were emulating a sound. I thought it still felt quite fresh, quite organic. And I think for me, the atmosphere of the album really helps enhance that sound that they've got. I think a lot of the kind of chords they've chosen, along with the guitar tone and the production style, all have a kind of huge part to play in how distinct this album sounds. And actually, I really dug the production on this. I thought it was very well matched with the band's style. It's not an overproduced album. It has a lot of kind of gritty texture to it, but that like grittiness, it doesn't make it too muddy that you can't make everything out. You can still hear the individual instruments. You can hear the rumble of the bass, and the drum sound is very natural, which I quite liked. What did you make of this? What were your thoughts and feelings on Lord Almighty?
This is a mixed bag for me. There's a lot that I do really like about it, specifically when they are tailoring their kind of black metal tinges towards genres that I really enjoy. So the kind of sludgier side of stuff, when that starts to kind of rear its head, you've got a listener in me. I think a great comparison actually is Kvelertak, who for the longest time were a band that defied. Like whenever you read a description of that band, it was like they were like, yeah, and the kind of sound was like a 70s influence, and here's a 70s rock and roll, but there's kind of there's a bit of black metal, and you're like, it's like, well, what do they sound like? Well, they sound like Kvelertak. So, and in a lot of respects, Lord Almighty sound like. I imagine that if I was a fan of this band, having not just listened to them recently, that I would be able to pick them out, and I'll play one song amongst 4 songs of bands that incorporate kind of black metal elements. I pick them out quite clear. So yeah, when they're touching on that side, the kind of sludgier, kind of more organic, kind of almost swampy sound with the black metal stuff, I am 100%. And I think in other parts it works okay, but maybe not as well. So when they're including a bit more of the kind of punkier side, I think it works for a bit. But after a while, I it's not necessarily bored of it. I don't enjoy it as much. And certainly when they kind of strip it like right back and go like the hella black metal, I'm not fully on board with it. The production definitely helps here because it does have this really organic-y sort of vibe, which I mean is generally my big criticism about black metal. The kind of traditional stuff has too much of an organic sound in that it doesn't sound very well produced at all, or produced at all. And that's a raw sound. That's what a band in a room, really loud, it sounds like. It can be very raw and, maybe difficult picking out things. But that's where a producer comes in to help. So I think what you get on Wither is some really, really great examples of... It's interesting you were talking about the black metal being incorporated with things. Is it the most versatile of the extremes to be used interestingly? Because I think of where because it's been recently, in the last couple of years, we've found kind of black and post-metal is really, really interesting to listen to because the atmospherics of kind of post-metal work with it. The punkier side for sure works with it. If you're a band like Death Heaven, they're incorporating like pure atmosphere and kind of like the kind of synthier stuff in there. It works really fucking well. If you're a band like Ghost, you're taking that over into the kind of dark and synthwave environment. It works really well there, and over the sludgy stuff it does as well. So I mean, and the key thing that all those bands have and Wither have as well is they know exactly where it's supposed to be positioned, so it never dominates over the sound of the sludge they're doing, but it's always there. It's always present. It's omnipresent without being, without being so overpowering that the other element feels like a gimmick, and they're not a gimmick band, and that's what I like. It's very easy to be we're the sludgy black metal band. Listen to us do the. I mean, and that's you've carved out that niche. So they experiment, and I appreciate the experimentation. To me, it doesn't always work. It's not always my particular taste. However, like I said before, I'm not aware of any other band doing what they're doing like what they're doing. And the diversity of the styles they mix up in the album does mean that you have a really... Like, no 2 listens to the album, I listened to this twice, no 2 listens to this album felt the same. You know what I mean? On the second listen, I was more enamoured with tracks that were kind of more blasé on the first listen, but on the second listen, I was like, there was a hook that come in, and I'd be like, my attention was on that hook. So and I love you get like track 5, which is Roman numeral 5. And you're kicking off with those kind of swampy. You hit it, it's like kind of very natural sounding drums, so like kicking off with the toms at the start, and you're just like, well, where are we going to go from here? And that's I think the thing about every track is it's not always evident when a track begins how it's going to finish, because they take you on a little voyage, a little journey. But the songs are surprisingly conventional at times as well. This whole review sounds oxymoronic, but it's because, as difficult and obtuse as they can be at times, they are grounding their music in wholly conventional A to B to C sort of templates, and then they deliver on that, but they add a bit of spice, a bit of something nice in there. So it doesn't work for me across the board, but there are more elements that work for me that don't. So. Okay.
Yeah, I get a lot of what you're saying. For me, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was a really dynamic album. It's not, and when you mention black metal, you automatically think of this like constant wall of sound, but it's not like that at all.
No.
Which it's quite common in a lot of black metal albums. This is very varied in tempo and intensity. By adding those like hardcore and sludge elements, it becomes quite unpredictable at times, where you're not too sure if you're going to get hammered with like a burst of blast beats or like a smoky fucking Thin Lizzy type melody. Like you're just like, and by Thin Lizzy type melody, I mean musically, not vocally.
Yeah,
vocally,
stress that.
It's, vocally, it's pretty corrosive sounding for its entirety. But even at that, they never became too much for me on this. I actually like, yeah, totally. I like the fact that they were so intense throughout with her, and they are intense. Believe me, if you listen to tracks like Mercy, you'll hear what I mean. They are completely savage, but because Lord Almighty pull in all these other like less abrasive elements, it kind of balances out the harshness of the vocals. And I think that balance continually kind of rears its head throughout this album. On tracks like Rise, which kind of opens with a mellow, almost like 70s rock feel before it kind of erupts into this like onslaught of blasts and bleak riffs, or Hour by Hour, which again has a black metal heart beating at its core, but it's infused with these like punk rock tones that it kind of makes the thing like a bit more digestible. Even the solo on Hour by Hour has a very like classic rock feel about it. My favourite track was probably Adrift, I think, which probably has some of the biggest riffs on the album. Like at moments I was like, it's almost like a battle between Gojira and Mastodon. But they kind of gradually add more melody to it as the track unfolds, to the point where it becomes like completely melodic, and then they build it back up again to finish it off with another almost like kind of big sludge laden riff at the end, which feels like a slower alternative of the opening riff. I quite liked the unpredictability of this record, how they bring all the styles together and make them interlink so well. And it doesn't always land perfectly.
Yeah.
There were a couple of tracks that were slightly weaker than the rest, where the hooks didn't have quite enough bite, or the transition was a little choppy, but it didn't take away any of the enjoyment of the album for me, or the fact that these guys are really good at what they do. I definitely think these guys are onto something, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them touring with bigger bands in a corona-free future. You know what I mean? I think
their sound could fit in quite a lot of places, which I think is what you want. Like, if you're a band like this, you want to be able to pull off the fans that are checking out, like a Mastodon, for example. They'd be a great opening band for Mastodon, because Mastodon tend to pick heavier supports. I could see them peeling off fans for sure, like those that remember, that are like long-term fans of Mastodon, but came in right at their really abrasive beginning, and then a band like this comes in, and you get those heavier elements you want. So I mean they're very well placed in there.
And they could easily sit on a complete black metal lineup as well. You know what I mean? As easy as they could with a band like Mastodon or Kvelertak. I enjoyed this. I did like the kind of mix these guys brought to the forefront, so I would recommend this one. It drops on October 16th. The album is called Wither. If you want to check the band out, you can check them out at facebook.com/Lord Almighty Metal. Rating wise, I'm probably sitting at a 4 with this one. I thought it was a very solid album, and I can see myself going back to it now and again after this review. What about yourself? What did you rate this one?
Yeah, just a little bit lower than you, 3.5. Like I say, there's a lot more that works on it for me than doesn't work. And once again, one of these bands that come along where if you are awash in a sea of very samey sounding bands that you're listening to, and you fancy something that doesn't sound like anything else you're listening to at the moment, Lord Almighty tick the box. So
Yep. Agreed. Thanks very much for checking out this review, guys. Much appreciated. As I said, there'll be links in the description below to the band's Facebook and stuff. Check them out, and check out the album when it drops on October 16th. We'll be back with a new review very soon, but until then, take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
bye everyone.
Now let's go!